Hi, my name is Heather Connolly, and I am Executive Administrator for Gorham Savings Bank. Before I worked for Gorham Savings Bank, I worked in New York City, and my job was to work with entrepreneurs and help them to grow their brand and develop their passion and to get to go from start to finish, and the finish would be their payday. So let's see what it means to be an entrepreneur. The definition of an entrepreneur is a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. So some of the attributes of being an entrepreneur are someone who has passion, somebody who has an idea or who sees a need or a want for something that they themselves could need or maybe that somebody else could need. An entrepreneur is somebody who is innovative, somebody who's not afraid to think outside of the box and to think about something that hasn't been done already. Most entrepreneurs start small. They start with just their own money, maybe some money borrowed from family or friends to put together a starting place as they build and grow. I think the greatest attribute for an entrepreneur is somebody who's pretty fearless, because there's a lot of risk to being an entrepreneur. So I'm going to tell you a couple of examples that I've experienced in my career. When I was in New York City, I worked as the right hand for a very famous doctor who was a dermatologist, a skin doctor, Dr. Norman Orntreich. He invented the hair transplant. He invented the Clinique line of products. But early in his career, he was a young dermatologist, and he always worked with the rich and famous on Fifth Avenue and all the women who wanted like perfect skin. So he learned early on in his research and in his work as a doctor that one of the things that makes your skin, perfect at its best condition is exfoliation, which means, to scrub your skin. And he could not find a sponge that was strong enough to do a good exfoliation. So one day he was in his New York City apartment. He walks into the lobby and he sees the guy there scrubbing the floor with this big machine. It's like a big round machine. And on the bottom of it, there's a coarse sponge that's affixed to it, a big round disc. And in order to put that disc onto the machine, the center part of it pops out. So then there was a piece of it, this big, that would pop out, and then it was thrown away in the garbage. So Dr. O, as we called him, would take those from the garbage. I'm sure he eventually worked out asking the guy who was doing the floors, he would have save them for him. But so he had these sponges and he started giving them to his patients to scrub with, and they loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. So then, of course, being an entrepreneur, instead of giving them away, he started selling them. And eventually he patented the idea and eventually sold the patent to 3M for millions and millions of dollars. And that was called the Buff Puff. So your parents will probably know about that. It's still on the market now. So that's one idea of an entrepreneur. When I came to Maine from New York, I started working on a brand that you all might know now, and that is Pretzel Crisps. I don't know if you've seen these in the store. So it's like a flat pretzel. So this Pretzel Crisps were born in the kitchen of Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, who wanted a snack that was a better for you snack. They wanted something they could dip they didn't want to eat a big giant pretzel because they thought it was like, too much to eat. So they took pretzels in their kitchen and they flattened them down on a cookie sheet and, made them in their oven, and they invented the flat pretzel, which had never been done before. Amazingly enough, it had never been done before. So they invented this flat pretzel. They started small. They were very entrepreneurial. Started small in their kitchen, and then eventually, they built the brand. They built the uh, the logo and all of that to package it in a nice way. And then eventually they invited investors. So they needed money to keep on going. They would have to buy bigger machines to make the pretzels on. So they had a few investors, and then they grew and grew and grew. Eventually, they sold the majority of their company to a venture capital firm, which means a firm with a lot of money to fund them so that they could grow even bigger with factories and distribution and that sort of thing. And then once they grew enough, their company was acquired by a bigger company that was Snyder's Lance. So they make a lot of money that way. And then it was eventually acquired even by a bigger company, which is now owned by Campbell's. So every time they sold, they made money. They made millions of dollars, all from this little invention of a pretzel. So if they can do that, then you can do that. So all of us are entrepreneurs. You all can be an entrepreneur. Follow your passion. Think outside of the box. Be bold enough to think of things in a way that no one has thought of them before. And have fun. Don't do it for the money. Do it for the fun. Do it for the idea that you can invent something that will make somebody else's life better or more joyful. And that is the best way to be an entrepreneur, as far as I can see it. So have fun. Thank you for having me.